One of my students recently confessed to me, I don't know what to do in the middle of a 2-5-1. I've been playing the altered scale over the 5 chord, but for some reason it always sounds weird. I thought about this for a second. Yeah, the altered scale is definitely a strong flavor. What is it that often makes it sound strange when we try to use it? And are there any better alternatives? Let's find out. Before we continue, my name's Tim. I help busy adult guitarists become confident jazz improvisers without drowning in theory or memorizing modes. I share simple, intuitive exercises that actually help you to learn to craft your own solos from scratch. If you like the sound of this, I've just launched a free community where we meet for live tutorials and Q&As, swap tabs and resources from these videos, and connect with other players around the world. Come hang out. The link's below in the description. Okay, the altered scale, otherwise known as the 7th mode melodic minor, contains every possible altered note you can play over a 7th chord. It's got the root, flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, flat 7, and flat 13, i.e. all of the wacky notes. There are 2 reasons it can sound a bit much when you're playing over the 5 chord. Firstly, it's a mode. Those of you who've studied with me or have followed the channel so far will know I'm not a big fan of modes because they encourage us to play in a linear fashion up and down the scale at the expense of melodic phrasing. When you run the altered scale up and down over the 5 chord, you're basically rifling through all the most chaotic notes, and this is one reason it can sound odd and indistinct. But the other reason is that our favorite players from the golden age of jazz didn't use modes. What they were far more likely to do is alter a single note of the 5 chord and just stick with that. Now, just as an aside, why does the 5 chord deserve so much attention, you may ask? Well, as we know, the 5 chord is the middleman in a 2-5-1 progression, and it's also the first chord in a perfect cadence. Harmonically speaking, it's the furthest away we can get from our root chord before our ears want to draw us back to home base. So it's got a lot of natural tension. As jazzers, we can add to this natural tension by altering some of the notes of our 5 chord to make it a bit spicier, thus making our melodies and solos more interesting. Now, this will be the subject of this video and more in a multi-part series I'm calling How to Sound Hip on the 5 chord. So if your 2-5-1 playing sounds a bit tame, or you've learned a few hot licks from your fave players but you don't know why they work, then we're going to evaluate some pro tricks that will have you sounding flash in no time. We're going to start at mild and get spicier with each subsequent video covering a different trick. Now, the song we'll be using to demonstrate our ideas is a classic from one of the classiest composers who ever graced the earth, Mr. Duke Ellington, and the song is Perdido. This tune consists almost entirely of 5-1s, and it's a perfect practice vehicle for our material. It goes like this. Start with, I'm playing in B flat major. Here's the B flat major scale in the 5th position. And here's the 5 chord arpeggio, F7. Now, if you've been trying to use modes to improvise over your 5-1s, then this arpeggio alone will come as a revelation. The dominant 7th arpeggio resolving to, let's say, the major 6, will immediately make you sound better than rifling between the Mixolydian mode and the Ionian mode. If you'd like to know more about how to do this, I've got a video here that you should watch. Now, using the dominant 7th arpeggio gives us a lot of material for weaving melodies between the 5 chord and the 1 chord when we know how to use them. But what if we want something that sounds a bit more hip than our bog standard dominant 7th arpeggio? Well, our first move to liven up our 5 chord is a trick a lot of jazzers use. We take the garden variety 5-7 arpeggio that we just looked at, and we replace the root note, the most boring note in the arpeggio, with the 9. In the case of our F7 chord, our root is obviously F, and we're going to replace every F in our arpeggio with G, which is the 9th. we've got an F here, and we've got an F here. So this F becomes G, and this F becomes G. And the arpeggio we end up with looks like this. So we've now turned our dominant 7th arpeggio into a dominant 9th arpeggio. What we end up with is this sound. This is very reminiscent of playing from Django to Wes. You hear the dominant 9th sound far more often with jazz guitar players than you do the regular dominant 7th because it's so much more interesting. Now, some of you bright sparks out there may have noticed that the shape of this new arpeggio seems familiar. It looks almost exactly like a minor 6 arpeggio if viewed from the note C. That's because it is. So we could say we're actually playing a C minor 6 arpeggio over the F7 chord, but we could also just say we're playing an F9 arpeggio. Music is funny like that. It's all about how we view the relationships of the intervals between the notes. Now let's mess around with this F9 in the context of Perdido. Here's what it sounds like. So adding the 9th gives us a subtle flavor that makes our lines more interesting. How do we practice this? The same way we practice any new sound we want to incorporate into our playing, with exercises. In this case, what I would do is take each inversion of the F9 and practice resolving that to the closest note of the B flat 6 arpeggio, like this. If you do this daily with each inversion, just in this one position, you'll be a master of weaving between them and you can begin to create stellar lines. Now make sure to tune in to our next installment in the series where we'll be looking at altering the 9 to get even spicier. In the meantime, if you'd like to keep learning with me, come join our jazz guitar community. We've got live sessions, Q&As, tabs and resources, and a group of enthusiastic students from all over the world, and it's totally free of charge. The link's in the description. Thanks for watching. Happy practicing, jazzers.